Our boy Nick Fairbaugh, friend of the show, has had some interesting. Is that a morning Alani?
Yes, sir.
What? Bro, what?
It's a mini can. Come on now.
Unbelievable. The mini cans are key because, for one, the peach flavor is good. The rest of the flavors are terrible. Like, I'm not. This thing makes me cringe every time I take a sip of it. And maybe it's because I leave it here for days at a time and just sip it as I'm going, but it makes me cringe every time. And two, you drink a full one of these, like I'll drink a full one during a podcast, and by the time we're done, I'm shaking. Like it's just because it's not like we leave. I'm not going to be athletic. I'm sitting here to work. You know, I'm moving. No, I'm going downstairs to get a cup of coffee to add the caffeine to the caffeine and calm my body down. And it just doesn't. It doesn't. Shout out a little 928. The 928 Alani. I love it. All right. Friend of the show, Nick Fairbaugh, has had plenty to say on Chris Olave, reporting over the weekend that the Pittsburgh Steelers did call the New Orleans Saints and did some due diligence on their 24-year-old wide receiver. Now it's come out what the asking price could be for Chris Olave if the Pittsburgh Steelers were to somehow convince New Orleans, hey, let's make a deal. He said this the other day in a story, quote, the trade cost for Olave would not be light. League sources had consensus that it would take at least one day two pick, likely a second round pick for the Saints to part ways with Olave before his fourth season. If they even considered trading him, given the Saints have no reason or desire to move Olave, the cost is likely higher than that. You look at Chris Olave, second round pick. Are you comfortable with it? If you have to give up more, are you still potentially comfortable with it?
No, the second round pick sounds really nice. Because I feel like that would be a steal for Pittsburgh. The more I think about it, I know we touched on this a little bit last week, but looking more over, what he's done in his career despite the injuries and being 24, I'm great with giving up a second round pick, especially in 2026, while there is a plethora of draft picks for the Steelers to still grab quality players with. I think that's a very reasonable price tag for the Steelers to pay. If you, here's, in Farabaw's quote, I think the very important thing there is if the Saints are willing to do a deal, because they really don't have any incentive yet to really trade him, at least at this point in the offseason. So I could very much see them holding firm on wanting a first round pick. And then if I'm the Steelers, if I'm Omar Khan, I balk at that price right now. And I, say appreciate it, but that's just not something we're willing to do right now. But a second round pick, I'm still very much in on. What about you?
I agree. I think I'm good with the second round pick. I look at Chris Olave as a guy that I would have given up. I thought George Pickens held a second round value. Mm-hmm. Chris Olave is in that same boat for me. I mean, no character concerns and more production. Seems great. Derek Carr is probably a better quarterback than anything that George Pickens has ever played with, but still not like the cream of the crop here. It's not like Chris Olave was out here with a phenomenal team around him. Like, yeah, decent team, but Taysom Hill was the guy, if you were looking at New Orleans offense, like if you asked 10 people to name somebody on New Orleans offense, I bet you 7 random ones would be like, oh, that quarterback that plays the other positions, that guy. And that's what they would say. Chris Olave has never had he's had a decent team around him. Definitely, again, better than what George has had, but has had better production. I think that's significant. I'd give up a second round pick for Chris Olave. I honestly, it wouldn't even budge me to think Chris Olave for a second would hinder anything for the Steelers long-term or right now. I think it fixes their wide receiver position this season and next season. And then from there, you decide on if you're going to pay him. You're going rookie quarterback route, so you have money to spend. Sign TJ Watt so you understand. We could talk Aaron Rodgers all day. You don't know what the biggest holdup in anything for the Steelers is right now is having zero idea what they're going to pay TJ Watt for the next 4 years. If you have an understanding of TJ's getting paid $40 million a year for the next 4 years, that's what we've agreed upon. This is what the cap hits look like, because you could say, oh, it's going to be 40. No. It's going to work out in different ways. The cap hit and the cap number is going to be significantly different year to year. And the way you could adjust it and work past it with signing bonuses and all these things is going to be different from year to year. You need to understand that. Once you understand that, then you could go make a second round pick for a Chris Olave and everything's fine. Like at that point, who cares? You already have it all figured out. You don't care about the quarterback. He's going to get paid nothing over the next 5 years. That's where the holdup is. That to me, that makes giving up a second round pick for Chris Olave a little bit more dangerous, but not dangerous enough to be worried about it. Like there's, again, zero part of me that sits here and says if the New Orleans Saints said second for Chris, great, take it, have fun. Great time. We still have enough to trade for our quarterback next year in the NFL draft. Things are fine. There's no pullback on a Chris Olave. You have a phenomenal wide receiver core. Calvin Austin, Roman Wilson still have opportunities to succeed and be that 2 and that 3, and that's awesome, and that's what you're looking for. And you have your studs for next year. I don't care about this year, but it helps this year because DK is phenomenal, and I think it's wild that there are some people out there being like, George Pickens is better than DK Metcalf.
False.
Like false. It's a false report. Okay. That's not true. Not true at all. Is George Pickens great? Definitely. Is Chris Olave great? Definitely. Is Chris Olave better than DK Metcalf? No. Chris Olave better than George Pickens? Potentially. Definitely potentially. And I think that dynamic, to me, zero questions asked on if I would go with Chris Olave. I want to ask you the trade package, but first, before we do that, I almost forgot about our boys over at Factor, and I want to make sure that I spread the word for all of our lovely fans. Make this your best season yet with nutritious 2-minute meals from Factor. Eating well has never been this easy. Just heat up and enjoy, giving you more time to do what you want. Get outside instead of prepping and cooking indoors. Factor meals arrive fresh and ready to eat, perfect for any active lifestyle. With 45 weekly menu options, you can pick gourmet meals that fit your goals. Choose from Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, Keto, and more. Factor powers your day with satisfying breakfasts, on-the-go lunches, premium dinners, and guilt-free snacks and desserts. It's easy to savor more this spring. Factor meals pack in the flavor with none of the fuss. I'm a big Factor guy. I've been using Factor for a long time, to be very honest with you, because I'm super lazy. I tend to spend way too much money if I don't go with a pre-cooked meal. That's my issue. It's not I'm too lazy to cook. It's I will go spend $30 on lunch for zero reason whatsoever every single day. Factor makes that, way better for me, my budget, and definitely my gut. Get started at factormeals.com/allsteelerstalk 50 off and use code allsteelerstalk50 off to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. That's code allsteelerstalk50 off at factormeals.com/allsteelerstalk50 off for 50% off plus free shipping. Shout out to our boys over at Factor. Ooh. I will ask you this bad boy to close the Chris Olave conversation. I have no idea who the general manager of the New Orleans Saints is. Actually, I do, because I see him every year at the combine, and I look at him and go, "You're not a GM, dude." Like, yeah,
is it Mickey Loomis?
I think it is. And that dude looks like he shows up in just a tee. He looks like me right now. This is his press conference outfit.
That's my kind of guy.
It's awesome. You're on the phone with him. You're Omar Khan. What are you offering New Orleans, and where does this negotiation go before you say we're done?
I would start with the George Pickens package. Basically be like, here's a third. You can have our fifth if you give us a seventh. If they hang up, then you call back in like an hour and be like, hey, I was just kidding. But we would do a second round pick plus that late round pick swap. Maybe let's throw out a roster player swap if we're trying to get extra creative, but I don't think that is really the route the Steelers want to go. So I would hold pretty firm with the second round pick. I'd be willing to go up to maybe giving like a 4th round pick if we got, a 6th round pick back just to feel some sort of value. But if they demand a 1st round pick and the conversations, cannot proceed past that, then I have to wait them out. It's just not the time to be expending that sort of draft capital.
Okay. I think I'm on the same boat as you. Is where we sit right now. I'm okay with the Pittsburgh Steelers extending a 2nd round offer for Chris Olave. And then once they come back and say, 2nd and a 3rd, I'm saying, no, we're okay, because you're not going to win a Super Bowl this year. You could get quality talent in the 2nd round. And at the end of the day, Chris Olave's price goes down a year from now. And if you're still confident that you're going to, want a wide receiver and be able to pay that wide receiver, have options and look at Chris Olave and say, all right, great. And you just never know. Like, you don't know who the T Higgins is going to be, where the team just decides they're not going to sign him until the very last moment, or you're not going to know, who the George Pickens is going to be until after the season, when you're saying, all right, this guy's available. We didn't expect him to be. Let's make an offer for, so-and-so, whoever's out there. And I'm sorry, guys, but right now where we stand, the Steelers don't have a starting quarterback. So there's just no point in now, again, week 3 rolls by, and that's the beauty of the NFL. Week 3 rolls by, you're 2-0. Things are looking great. The Saints are 0-2. Tyler Shuck looks like a disaster. It's over. The Saints season's done. You want to call New Orleans and say, hey, we'll give you a 2nd round pick for Chris Olave? I bet you they'd take it then. And at the same time, that's still a move that benefits your team. He's going to 2 weeks. He plays after the bye week in week 5. And, he's not a great fantasy pickup, but he's a good back half of the season option for the Steelers at wide receiver. And I think at that point, the options are there. Again, is it definitely going to work out? No, but I'm not pushing the limits to risk where you go next season for a wide receiver. And at the same time, there will be options. It's just a matter of right now, it's May, and there aren't really many options because, well, it's May and teams. It's just like everybody. Do you expect Will Levis to be on the Titans by the start of the season? Chances are no, right? Yeah, potentially, probably not. Somebody's going to call and make that trade. Nobody expected George Pickens, but we were talking July, and that's where it is. Like, it's at a place where everybody's very comfortable with their roster. That comfortability changes when you show up in training camp and realize your quarterback's just not good, just not the guy. And at that point,
it changes.
Things
drastically changes.
Exactly.